Are you a footballer who wants to maximize your performance to succeed at the top level? My new ebook, Strength and Conditioning 101 for Female Footballers, is now available. For free and instant access, simply head on over to jacobandre.com. Link is in the show notes. The Women's Footy Podcast is brought to you by Fitnessworks. With 3 convenient locations in Darwin at Darwin City, Nightcliff and Allawa, these gyms are world-class family exercise centres offering the latest equipment with friendly and fully qualified staff. For more information, check out fitnessworksnt.com.au. G'day and welcome to the Women's Footy Podcast. Today, I'm speaking to Ben Stanley from Enhanced Football. Ben, welcome to the show.
G'day, thanks for having me. Awesome seeing you online a bit, so interested to have a chat.
We were just having a chat before we started recording about connecting with each other. Your Instagram page is phenomenal. The quality of the content that you're producing on there in terms of your skill development for Australian rules football is amazing. Tell me just a bit of background on that Instagram page. I'm just going to quickly jump in here. It's my daughter's birthday today, and I had a feeling this might happen. I'm not going to cut this out because I want it to be as natural as possible. There's a few balloons laying around the room. And I thought, I bet you one of them pops during this interview.
I didn't even hear it.
Oh, didn't you? I was scared the bejesus out of me. Anyway, your Instagram page, tell me a bit of background about it.
Yeah, so really the aim of the Instagram page to start with, if you scroll back in time, it was all just to educate people on kicking technique and the fundamental skills of AFL. So with my teaching background and football experience, I thought I was well equipped to do that. And it sort of grew from there. Like we started to do certain things with different people and a lot of video analysis stuff. And then it just grew from there, and it's getting bigger and bigger every day. And we love communicating with everyone that's on there and just interacting with all the AFL community all around the world, which is amazing, which I never really realised. So, you'll get a question from someone from Bendigo, and then next minute it's someone from Japan, which is awesome. So we love it. We love it. We put a bit of time into it, but we love it.
Tell me a little bit about the stuff outside of Australia. Are these competitions that are happening in other countries?
Yeah, it is amazing. Like, from Russia to Japan to the USA to the UK. A lot of the times it is started up by expat, Australians that are around the area, but there's other stories of just people stumbling across the game through YouTube or social media. And it's really exploding. There's big leagues in America and the UK, and it's a real area that I'm excited to. And one of our goals probably in the future is to get over there and help out as much as we can, because we're starting to form some connections that are pretty exciting. So it's something that I know I live in Queensland, so a few of my rugby league friends, it's their one thing they always got on me, where it's not an international game. But who knows? In 50 years, who knows?
Yeah, exactly. So if you were going to imagine being able to go and run a camp in another country, that would be amazing. And if you were going to do that, which country would you go to first? Which one do you think is the best for the next step outside of Australia?
It's probably the obvious one, but I think Ireland would be the first, because that's where we're getting a lot of great recruits from there in the male space and the female space. So I think, to get them prepared to come over here, I think that's where that would interest me the most. And their kicking technique is very challenging, because they're coming from a round ball. They're pure strikers of the ball, but they've got a few things that are a little bit different. So I think that's where you would start. But then, would love to get over to the States and the UK, Japan, all those places. The options are endless.
You just brought up holding a round ball and kicking the round ball. What are some of the key points that you talk about more than anything else when it comes to the skill of kicking the Australian rules football?
Yeah. So I think, like, first, some things that people struggle with is just the way they hold the ball. The way they hold the ball limits what they can do and the control they have. So a lot of the times that's where we start, and we don't necessarily teach. There's not one way to hold football, as you would know. We've got more guidelines, and we go through those. So, spread your fingers out, more fingers on the front panel, less on the back, and then just positioning your hand for comfort, basically. So once you get that right, then we can start to teach the motion that's relaxed and fluent, like we were talking about before with Nas from St Kilda. There's lots of things to it. But the reason the Irish athletes struggle is they're coming from a round ball, so they tend to hold the ball underneath, and their hand moves, and there's all different variables in there. So it's pretty challenging. But yeah, that's sort of a brief where we'd start with a lot of people.
So I want to sort of keep going on this line of thought here
Yeah,
for a moment, because this is something I'm really interested in, is holding the ball to kick it. And the
yeah,
way I was taught growing, I grew up playing football in Darwin, and so it's probably the most popular sport here.
yeah,
And we were told, put your ring finger or your root finger down the seam, and then from there sort of like hold it down. But I saw Danielle Ponta holding the ball towards the top of the football, where obviously it's a bit skinnier at the top, and it's much
yep,
easier to be able to hold with one hand. And
yeah,
I tried that, and I found that much actually easier to hold and kick the footy. What
yeah.
do you think about that?
100%. Yeah. So that's what we do. So if you hold the ball in the middle, you'd probably want to have big mitts like Tom Hawkins or Stewie Lowe back in the day. Um, to promote control, we suggest sliding the thumb up just above the laces. And that's where Nick Dacos holds it. So if you want to see a good kick, he holds it slightly higher. So, if someone's looking to adjust or change their grip, we'll get them to feel that. And it makes sense, right? The ball gets a little bit skinnier. We don't like the thumb getting really high, but definitely on that skinnier end. And then it promotes that hand control that we're all about. So yeah, 100%. There's lots of players doing it, and keep your eye on it. Like, I'm a bit obsessed, but if you have a look at the games, like if you look at Nick Dacos, check his thumb position. If you look at Bontempelli, they're all very similar, but there are some Dusty Martin, Fogarty, those type of guys like to hold it on the lower side. So it's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Obviously, you can watch this in a game of football that's televised on TV or on YouTube. But I think
Mm,
probably one of the best places to go and see it is on your Instagram page, which is at Enhanced Football, because you
mm.
do some technique analysis using Coach's Eye, I think it is. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we use Coach's Eye. I'm developing my own app at the moment, actually, that's because Coach's Eye has been discontinued.
Oh,
So
what?
for you can't there's only certain ways, like you have to pay bucket loads of money to be a pro Coach's Eye thing. So yeah, we're developing our own app called, it's not a plug session, I know, but it's called Enhanced Coach. And it's very similar, and it's in development. You can get it free now on the App Store. But it's, we're just developing it. It's not quite at that level yet. It'll get there. But yeah, that's our aim, is to have the best sort of analysis tool for Australian rules football and many other sports as well. Mm.
Oh, feel free to plug away.
Yeah.
So if you can analyze your kicking and every other skill, I presume, technique of football, can you also do
Yep.
running from a personal point
Yep.
of view? Can you do running mechanics?
Yeah, yeah. So the app at the moment is in, like, it's you can download it. It's free on the App Store, but it's in the basic form. So you can record, draw on it and things like that. It just doesn't have all those extra amazing features as yet. The next one that's coming is we'll be able to compare. So you can compare Usain Bolt to you sprinting if you've got that footage.
Oh my
So
goodness,
that's
that
our
sounds
challenge.
awesome.
Yeah, our challenge is we've already got a few people on board, but we want to have a library on the app where people can go, I want to kick like Chloe Malloy from Sydney. And Chloe's going to do that. And there they have Chloe kicking versus whoever. And then you can look at that. So that's our aim. And I think it's about a year off to get to there, and about 6 months off with the extra features as well. So pretty exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, very exciting. So just once again, what's that? What would someone type into the App Store to find that?
Yeah, just enhance coach. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. And we'll link that up in the show notes as well. So you obviously
Yeah.
know a lot about football. Just share your journey about how you got involved with Australian rules football, especially as a Queenslander living in Queensland.
Yeah. So originally, like all Queenslanders, we were from Victoria, but I moved up as a young bloke. So we moved up when I was about 10 or 11. And my whole family absolutely loved the place. As soon as they moved here, I couldn't stand it because there wasn't enough footy. So it took me a long, long time because there was rugby league and that was it. And there just wasn't talk at school about footy. Kids are playing other soccer and other things. So it took me a while. But really, as the Lions got more successful and things like that, footy grew in Queensland. And I suppose I was that age where it just kept getting bigger and bigger. So it became easier and easier as a young child. And yeah, I was lucky enough to represent Queensland all the way through juniors and even get to play against Victoria, and which would flog us by 50 to 100 points every time. So yeah, that was my sort of journey. Always stuck with footy. There was nothing else that I was passionate about. So it was footy all the way through. And it's been really good to see the growth in Queensland. I reflect back on what I did as a junior and how many people played to now. It's just phenomenal. Footy is thriving in Queensland for boys and girls. So yeah, it's been good to see.
Yeah, well, my son's at boarding school in Warwick, which is 2 hours southwest of Brisbane, and
Yeah,
his main sport probably would be football, but down
yep,
there it's not Aussie rules football when they say football. It's not even rugby league, it's rugby union. So
it is.
um,
Yeah, yep.
so it's definitely still rugby is obviously the most popular sport in Queensland. But I was interviewing Jared Kay, who was the last interview on the podcast, who's a Richmond
Mm,
Tigers AFLW strength and conditioning coach. He was talking
yes.
about you and pumping you up, and he was also talking about how much football has grown, particularly with women in Queensland. Is there something that you're doing differently in Queensland to be getting noticed by the big Victorian people?
No, I just think it's the lifestyle up here. Like it's a fun, active lifestyle. Like we've got the climate, and girls are just encouraged to play competitive sport at a young age, and they're just picking the best sport, and it's AFL, and it's flourishing at all local clubs. I never expected it, but a lot of my clientele is probably even a little bit more female. It might be 60% female, 40% male. So yeah, I'm not sure what the secret is, but you look at like a Craig Starcevich, who, the coach of the Brisbane Lions, who I've had a bit to do with. He's an amazing football person. He really only recruits Queensland girls. They just keep pumping out the talent, and there's enough here. And he's very encouraging of that. And if you look through their record, Belle Dawes and Kathy Spark, and they're all coming from Queensland. And they've been, coming through the junior ranks. So it's a bold recruiting method, and it's paid off.
So, talking about Queensland, just on the weekend before recording this interview, you had a camp and you had a bunch of AFLW players from different clubs who
Yeah.
flew to Queensland with money out of their own back pocket to
Yep.
take time out of their lives to go and participate in your camp. Tell me a bit
Yeah.
more about that.
Yeah, this has been a real like passion project. It's the second one we've run. And the idea stems from really American sport where you watch all the basketballers and NFL players, they all come from different organizations before preseason, and they might have a game of basketball. I remember Michael Jordan doing it back in the day and inviting everyone while he was shooting Space Jam. He invited like all the best players. So that's where it stemmed from. And I thought, all right, let's start this with our AFLW. And the first one we did, like we had Chloe Malloy come up from Sydney, Jesse Wardlaw from St Kilda, some Lions players, and we got together, and they just got better because they're training with amazing talent, and they just pushed each other. And then we did it again, and Ebony Marinoff from Adelaide Crows and Liv from St Kilda and a few Lions girls as well, and yeah, amazing camp. That the growth from it was just amazing. Lots of different activities from Muay Thai boxing to Pilates to a beach session with Jordan Mercer, a mindset session with Dylan at the Evolve Gym, and it's just getting the community involved, all the best people around. And I love it. It was brilliant. Yeah. And the girls loved it. It was great.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, do you have to be an AFLW player to participate in a camp like this?
Yeah, for those ones, it was, but I always invite along a young up and coming player. So Mia Gear came along, who's a 16-year-old playing senior footy for Wilston Grange at the moment. She's a young up and coming, very good player. And then yeah, last time we brought a few other young girls along just to see what it feels like training with the best players. Like, how is it training with Chloe Malloy and Ebony Marinoff? It'd be scary, but they're out of their comfort zone. And they're very nervous, but after it, they can't sleep. They're that excited. So I even had Lucy Boyd, who's a girl I've been working with in South Australia. It's her draft year this year. She came over for one just to again train with AFLW talent. So try to mix in a couple of young ones too. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. So you're Victorian originally, and it's
Yep.
in your blood, obviously, because you're so into footy. How did you get
Yeah.
into football coaching?
Yeah, it all stems from dad because dad was a great player himself, but an amazing junior coach and senior coach. But I watched him; he coached me through juniors, and I watched him coach a couple of other sides, and just watching the relationships that he developed and his teaching. He wasn't a teacher; dad's a plumber. But watching how he taught and things like that, I learned a lot from that. So I just wanted to be like that, really. And still not quite there yet, but I reckon. That's my aim is to be as good a coach as him. So we'll see how we go.
So where do you see this all going? What's the big picture, the big outcome goal that you hope to achieve out of enhanced football?
Yeah, I don't really have a huge goal for it, but I just want to, just the same as when I started, was that just to help people. And I didn't realize we'd be able to do it this much. So now the world's the oyster, really. I can help as many people as I can, and develop their footy. And that's really what I want to do. Doing up a game review today at Lucy again in South Australia. Like, how cool is that? A girl playing for West Adelaide sends her clips through, and I just do up a game review of 21 touches, great game, but here's where you can get better as well. So that's exciting to me. Just to, I might make a 2 or 3% difference to her to get better, and that's what you're looking for, right?
And is something like that open to anyone who might be listening?
Yeah, yep. And anything like that, we probably do 10 kicking analyses at least a week of people that just send in their kick. And we do a full report video analysis and send through online drills for them to improve. Game reviews, we probably get one or two a week where people cut up their footage and send it through, and we do that back. We've got so many things that just keep evolving, online programs to help kicking and things like that. So yeah, it's all there, and it's all there for people if they need the help and want to develop, which is pretty cool.
And where would they need to go to find out a bit more about this?
Yeah, just our website. So just go to enhancedfootball.com, and go into our services link. I've actually got to sort it out. There's that many on there at the moment. But just scroll through and have a look, because there's a lot of school holiday programs on there. And if you have a good look, you'll find whatever you're after there. It's exciting.
So you've obviously done a lot. What's the most memorable experience that you've had coaching football?
Um, I did look at. Yeah, I've had to think about that. Um, there's lots because like they're daily. Like there's ones that are from AFL to AFLW players, and there's ones that are 10-year-old kids. Teaching a kid that hasn't developed a one-handed ball drop, and after an hour or two or three lessons or whatever it is, getting them to kick with a one-handed ball drop, to me, that's gold. Like, I get really excited by that. Probably a bit sad, isn't it? But I love that, just to see. Like, the other day, I played football with one of my good mates, Cameron Taylor. We played at Maroochydore together, and he brought his son along. That was amazing, because to have a mate bring their son for me to teach them, I was like, this is the best. Um, to see Belle Dawes, like, had her when she was, just drafted, all the way through to a 22-year-old now, and just seeing that progression where she pretty much won every award at Brisbane Lions, their best and fairest night. Like, she was on stage the whole night. So to see that is amazing. Um, yeah, there's lots. Like, I remember Jessie Wardlaw training her, to see her progression with her set shot from where she was when I first saw her to now. It's totally different. So I keep getting to see this on TV, and you keep seeing it, and just puts a smile on my face. So there's heaps.
Yeah. So you've mentioned a lot of you mentioned a couple of boys, but you mentioned a lot of females there. You've
Yep.
obviously worked with a lot of like high level men as well. But
Yeah.
you earlier mentioned that you're probably doing 60% female now to male. What's some of the
Yep.
unique challenges that you feel females face in relation to football as opposed to their male counterparts?
Yeah, so probably professionally, and this is getting better, but it's probably just the money side of things. So a lot of these girls are training as many hours as the men, but they've still got a part-time job. I know Erica Fowler, who plays for Collingwood, who I happened to teach as well back in the day up here in Queensland. Um, she's a paramedic, so sometimes she's rocking up to training totally spent, and her coaches are asking, to bring the intensity and all this stuff. She's just done an 8-hour shift in a highly stressful job. Pretty hard. I don't think Nick Dacos is rocking up to training like that. He's probably come from a swim. So that would be the biggest challenge. I think the other challenge, and it is male coaches for a lot of females. We need to get more female coaches involved in community footy, because some male coaches just don't know how to deal with female athletes. We're lucky enough that we've had a school teaching background. I've taught in co-ed schools for 20 years. So I know how to teach girls. I know how to develop relationships and gain their trust and things like that. So I would say those two things, and that's not a criticism on male coaches. It's just they probably haven't had the experience.
Yeah, and you're touching on communication there, which we're going to talk about a little bit later too, because it's such a big thing, and I think it's so
Yeah.
important. But on that, how do you tailor programs, or do you need to change them in any way to address the specific needs of female footballers?
No, I don't. I had Christian Petrarca a few weeks ago down in Melbourne, who's a fair footballer, and I seriously don't teach him any different to what I would if I got a 13-year-old girl from Maroochydore. Same progression, same technique. Obviously, he does it more powerfully and faster and things like that because he's a professional. But everything for me is the same, and I reckon that's where some coaches go wrong, is they teach females differently. They are no different. They can kick the same as anyone. So that's my belief. I'm very strong on it, and I reckon I've got the runs on the board and the proof to back it up as well. So yeah.
Hey, Jacob here with a quick message. If you're enjoying this episode of the Women's Footy Podcast and you want more fitness tips for the female footballer, I encourage you to join our Instagram channel, Footy Fit Fam. Link is in the show notes. Now, back to the show.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So in my line of work as a strength and conditioning coach, there's a lot of stuff that goes into injury prevention. Is there anything that you need to consider when it comes to teaching skills where it might be repetitive kicking, for example, that you need to consider in terms of injury prevention?
Yeah. This is not my, coming from a PE background and things like that, obviously got a good knowledge on it, but compared to someone like you, it's not my expertise. So I do lean on people like yourself. I might even message Jared, who was on the podcast on Sunday, just for some advice as well. And I think that's the key. Don't profess to be an expert in everything. I'm an expert in kicking. I want help with this sort of stuff. So obviously, we've got to watch the load of some players when they're kicking, and each player is different. Some players can have 150 kicks a session, but other players, you've just got to watch their load and talk to them, how you're pulling up, how's your legs feeling, and things like that. So that would be a big one, because a lot of our lessons are predominantly kicking for some people, if that's their growth area. So we've just got to be careful, about that. Also, with the preparation to train and injury prevention, just making it specific. So not just running in straight lines, doing the non-linear stuff, circle running, a lot of one-legged stuff, all that, just to prepare them for the movements of AFL football. And I think that's why there were so many injuries early on in AFLW, because girls were coming from different sports that probably weren't quite ready, with the specific movements. And then finally, it's just the safety stuff with tackling and ground balls. So I'm big on that. Again, like getting him in a safe position to pick up a safe and strong position for a ground ball. And then the tackling stuff, I'm working hard to get better and educate myself on that as well. Different to when we played, right? It's a different technique.
Yeah. What common misconceptions are there about female footballers, if any? And if there are, how do you address them?
Yeah, I don't think there's many, but like these are the ones you may hear, like on the, from your maybe uneducated person or someone that hasn't been around it. Things like they don't train as hard, which is absolute crap. The training I see from, even girls that are in the under 15, 17 academy levels, like they're just training so hard. And then you go watch a line session. Good luck if you want to try and survive in that. I took my old man to one at Maroochydore that they were training, and he could not believe it. He said, that is unbelievable. They train at match intensity. And he watched Belle Dawes and Emily Bates and Kathy Spark just go hard at each other for an hour. And he was super impressed. So that got him interested in AFLW, actually. So if you haven't seen it, go watch them train, go watch them play. And the other one I hear sometimes is that they just don't understand the game. Okay, if you think that's the case, get on a call with Belle Dawes or Shannon Campbell these girls are great coaches already. They're coaching level 3 academy girls coming through the system. And yeah, they know the game. They're all over it. They're ready to coach now. And Belle's 22. So imagine what she's going to be like at my age. She'll be AFLW coach for sure.
Yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
AFL men, who knows?
There's actually a
Yeah.
lot more women doing that now, moving across to the
Yep.
men's, like Daisy Pierce and
Yep.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, I think and hopefully then they come back, and they've learned some stuff and get into the AFLW or community footy in the female space.
Yeah, yeah. So there's
Yeah.
many demands in football. It's a very, very dynamic sport. Just from a strength and conditioning point of view, there's like
Mm.
pretty much every component of fitness in there.
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
how do you balance all of these demands when you're coaching the players that you're coaching?
Yeah, it is. You're never going to get it right, I don't think. Like you try and you plan, and it's the biggest challenge for coaches, private coaches like me, and club coaches is how much time do you spend on ground balls? How much time do you spend on marking? I always refer it to like we're like UFC fighters. UFC fighters got to be good on the ground. They've got to be good with stand up. All the different techniques they use. If you neglect one, your opponent's going to take advantage of you. So that's the same as AFL, and it's very hard. The way I try and do it is I'll run craft circuits at the start of training, and I'll set up, depending on the numbers, but I'll set up 6 stations, and I'll try and tick off most of the fundamentals on them. So there might be a tackling station, a ground ball station, a clean hand station, marking, kicking, and whatever you think, bouncing, anything like that. So there in that first 15 minutes of training, you can basically tick off everything. And you can do that in pairs, in groups of 3, whatever you like, however you plan it. So that's how we try and do that. And we also try to make it fun. One of my favorite sayings is don't take the fun out of fundamentals. That's my big message to coaches. Because I go to a lot of trainings and you watch some things and you can see kids are bored out of their brain. Make it fun, and then they'll learn better, which you would be all over being in the teaching space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are some of the key performance indicators that you track to assess the progress and readiness of the players?
Yeah, good question. I stole this off Travis Boak. What a player he is. He played his 350th, didn't he?
350, yeah,
Um,
just
yeah,
recently, yeah.
he is amazing. Like amazing human, more importantly, but great footballer. Mind, body, craft, and he was big on that and still is. So just attending to the mind, it's such an untapped thing that coaches probably don't talk about it enough. And we did a great session on the weekend with the AFLW girls, just talking about their body language and how to prepare and all those things, just real mindset stuff. So getting your mind right, how to bounce back from errors and all those type of things. And then it's your body, and that's where you guys come in, the strength and conditioning guys. Your running, your gym stuff, and what's your 2K time trial and all that. It's important, and you've got to set standards for that. And then it's craft, and that's where I come in with the skill components. So if you can attend to those 3, the mind, the body, and the craft, I reckon you're preparing yourself pretty well, and you can sort of track them. Obviously, the mind's a bit harder, but seeing what a lot of the girls were doing on the weekend, they journal everything, so it's actually easier to track. The body, that's your job. Strength and conditioning guys, I can assist that, and craft, my job. How are your skills going? What's your weapon? Where can we get better? So yeah, that's sort of what I do. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting that you say that about the 1, 2, 3, the mind, the body, and then the craft or the skill.
Yeah.
Because I've interviewed lots of coaches, and particularly head coaches will say, when I
Yep.
say what advice would you give to a female footballer, for example, the number one thing they'll say first is focus on your ball control, like improve
Yep.
your skill, because it's
Correct.
developed dramatically in the last 10 years
Yep.
in female football, but there's still so much
Yep.
more improvement there. So
100%.
just grab a football and walk around with it and just have it in your hand constantly. And then number 2, most important, is fitness and get up
Yeah.
to that level. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it is like you talk to, we have a bit of contact with the recruiters and stuff because they're interested in what people are doing with us. And most of them, you've got to be competitive. Yep. Tick that. You've got to be clean, like you were saying. If you're fumbly at a higher level, it's just not going to work. So you got to be clean with your ground balls, clean with your hands, clean with your marking, and obviously have some good foot skills. So as you said, it's how challenging is our game to be good at all that.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, those things, the competitiveness is one that I really look for as well. And you can do that in a small group and in a situation where you just put them in a contested environment and see how they respond. So yeah, it's a big one. They're good ones to think about, aren't
Yeah, yeah. You talked about just then bouncing back. And so we're about to get on to
they? Yeah,
mental resilience and mindset stuff. So
yeah.
maybe you're looking ahead of those questions and you're
No,
making perfect little segues for me,
yeah,
making my job easy. But
no. Yeah,
one of the things I like to say is that the person who, or the player who can bounce back the fastest after a mistake is often the most
yeah,
successful. So the quicker you can flick that thinking into the positive, the better.
yeah, 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 yeah. That's what and that's sort of my messages on game reviews and stuff like that. Like doing one today for Lucy. My message before it was you need to be more attacking with your kick coming out of defense. She was just hitting backwards, sideways kicks that weren't really doing much. They're just letting the defense set up in front. So I said, when you take an intercept mark, I want you to go and hit that kick and be attacking. Let's try and generate some really good offense. So fast forward to this week, she made a few errors. There was a few turnovers, but so much more good came from it. She just kept going at it and kept going at it, and they generated from some scores from it. So exactly like you say, when you make an error, how do you bounce back? Give yourself quick feedback. What did I do? How can I get better? Move on. Don't dwell on your mistakes. That's the biggest thing in footy. That's why we don't play cricket. Cricket, you don't get a second. You play one bad shot, you're probably out, and you got to go into the sheds. And so that's footy. Constantly making mistakes. It's how you bounce back. So yeah, we're big on that, and we talk to our players a lot about that, particularly in the game reviews, and just in general discussions at training as well.
So what
Yeah.
sort of things would you say to a player to help them with overcoming them setbacks and maintaining their motivation? Like what specific strategies could they use to ensure that they bounce back quickly and just keep that motivation level, that kind of positivity
Yeah.
up?
Yeah. I listened to a few different podcasts, and I heard one with Craig McRae the other day. And I might get this a little bit wrong, but he hates the word confidence. What is confidence? It's just a thing. Think about what you've done previously, the habits you're in, and what you've done at training. So that's what I sort of tell them is go back to what we did at training. Think about what we did there and how you hit those kicks. You hit those 45s under pressure. You did that switch kick. Go back to that and think, okay, I can do that. That's where we build confidence. We get the trust in ourselves there. So you go back to the hard work you've done previously, basically. And you just got to trust in your body and your process that it will happen. So that's my main message to them, is just to keep going at it. During training, my message is I encourage mistakes. I want you to make mistakes. That's what training's for. And then we learn from them. So yeah, not sure if that answers your question, but that's sort of what we do. Yeah.
I think, yeah, creating an environment where you can feel free to make mistakes, almost even try to make mistakes, like go and try things
Yep.
that you wouldn't otherwise try and have
100%.
pure like freedom to be able to do that. I think that's probably underrated in terms of a strategy.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and that's really from coaches and leaders in a team, isn't it? That have got to generate that culture of that making mistake is fine, but then we've got to come up with a solution. The other one is, I think, if you make training a little bit uncomfortable, the game's easy. So if you train easy and just, if training looks perfect and you got no pressure on you and you're hitting all these, that's how I used to train. That's how we grew up. I don't know about what your memories were, but I remember my training was a lot of just kicking to markers and running through, and I looked great at training. But when I look back, I probably wasn't good enough under severe heat with my skills. And that's because I wasn't put in that environment enough. So make your athletes uncomfortable with some challenging stuff at training. So then when game time comes, there's their confidence.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, 100%. So
Yeah.
you've already talked about your app that you've got. That's
Yeah.
obviously a pretty innovative piece of technology. Is there any other pieces of technology that you're using that you like, and any other kind of like innovative training methods that you could be using? You've already talked about so much stuff that's quite
Yeah.
innovative, but
Yeah. No, like I think the stuff like getting girls from different clubs to train, I think that's innovative in our sport because not many other people are doing it, particularly for a craft skills session and things like that. Some girls may go in the gym together and things like that, but to do actual football specific stuff, I think that's pretty, for our sport, I believe that's innovative. And I think that really worked well. I also think something that I'd probably do okay is I look to other sports. And that's coming from a PE background. I think that's part of why I can design and create new sort of drills and things like that. So I'll go watch a under 15 soccer practice or hockey or touch football or anything like that and look at a, excuse me, and look at a training drill and say, okay, how can we make that into AFL? Because we're all similar sports, aren't we? It's similar. If you watch a game of soccer, basically it looks like AFL. It's the same thing. They're, holding onto the ball in their defensive half. And then when it's time to attack, they have a go. Like it's very similar principles. So yeah, that would be another one is, a drill I'll do on Instagram maybe tomorrow is I got it from touch football. It's a touch football passing drill, but I just turned it into a handballing drill and it was fun and it created a good environment. So yeah, I think things like that help as well.
Yeah, interesting. I was going to ask you which 3 sports you would pick, and then you listed them. I actually expected you to say basketball to be in that top
Probably.
3. But
yeah, I'd probably go soccer, basketball, and maybe hockey or something like that. Field hockey, something. They're just similar patterns. I think with the basketball, it's more that in close vision and movement that translate well. But with the other sports, I think the patterns of the game are pretty much identical to what we do, just with a different shaped field. And that's where all coaches have learned from, haven't they?
yeah, even at the highest level, like Australian coaches, the Australian soccer coach and the Australian netball coach I've heard them speak publicly about, even them two connecting and talking about
100%.
And if you really think about it, hockey, basketball and soccer, it's all very similar to football. And I think football's become more like them because those sports, I'm just sort of thinking off the top of my head here, those sports are very much about holding the ball in the defensive half and then sort of slingshotting or like going hard and fast typically when it's time to go.
Yeah. They're the exact same things. They if the ball comes in one side, they like to go out the other side in hockey, in soccer. Don't kick back into congestion. It's about how to move defensive structures with the ball. It's all the same. And that's why our game has come such a long way. If you watch a game of footy in the 90s, it's almost, you wouldn't even think it's AFL. It looks completely different, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Better or worse? I don't know. Did you like it back then more or?
Oh, I like it better now because it's faster paced. And as a strength and conditioning coach, I love athletes. And so it's a lot more, and you hear a lot of people say this, it's a lot more athletes playing football now as opposed to pure footballers back, in the 70s and 80s in particular and before that. There's probably a lot more kick mark back then, whereas now it's a lot more, give that quick hand pass to keep the ball moving quickly.
Yeah.
It
was interesting. I just did sorry.
Yeah, I like it now, is what I was going to say. I think I like it better now.
Yeah. I think like footy in the late 90s, early 2000s, that was sort of my favorite period, where it was limited. The interchange wasn't as much, and there was still a bit more one-on-one contests. I think that was really good. But now, the game will evolve. It evolves all the time, and it's in good shape. Interested to see where it goes.
Here's an interesting one for you. Would you be happy to have an unlimited cap on the interchange so that you've constantly got players coming on fresh?
Yeah, no, I think I would actually prefer to see it come down a little bit. I like the grind of players, grinding it out a little bit more. At the moment, players are coming off and on. Like midfielders, probably what would they last for? 6 minutes.
Generally my experience. So we've tried this. Like, I'm going to jump in here because we've tried this like a couple of times in the experience I've had at local club football. And we tried a 5 to 6 minute rotation. And so I was working with Dean Rioli, who was ex-Essendon player. He was a head coach. And we were working around, like, his sort of game plan was I don't know if I should be saying this in case he starts coaching again, but to go. So there was a 3-person rotation. So it was midfield, forward, off. And so all 3 midfielders would be in this rotation. So 9 players would be in this rotation, as well as the wingers would also be in this rotation. So the wingers would go bench, wing, wing. And so the guy who was off the bench would sprint to the near wing. The other guy would sprint to the other side, and then the guy who was coming from the far end of the court would come far end of the field would come off with the long sprint, and then they're going to have a rest. The others would go from bench to midfield to the fresh, midfield to forward, and then off. So this was this sort of three-way rotation, and 12 players in this essentially. It was good for the opposition because they didn't know who was where. Players were all over the shop. But players would just go in and they would give like maximum effort for that 5 minutes that they were in the midfield, and then they would have a little bit more rest if they're in the forward line, and the forward line, they got that little burst of motivation because they'd be trying to kick a goal before they came off. So that worked really well. And then we also tried it. This was speaking to Andrew Hodges, who was an NT Thunder coach for a period of time, who coached this club Wanderers the season before Dean and I were involved. And he was saying one of the things he tried to do, and he sort of suggested trying it, and we tried it for a game, which was to do an effort-based one. And so it was 5 to 6 efforts as opposed to 5 or 6 minutes. And so they could get their efforts in 30 seconds, or they could get their efforts in, 6 minutes. Is generally never longer than that. So it meant the rotation was quicker. The players didn't particularly like that because if they had their efforts really quick, they didn't really want to rotate. They didn't feel like they'd kind of settled in. But that one, that took us to a grand final, which we lost 2 years in a row. But that 5-minute rotation I found worked really well.
Yeah. I think that's about the point, isn't it? And that makes it a little bit easier for you guys to design a preseason training program around, doesn't it? Like,
Absolutely.
we've got to build them to that sort of workload. I think as you go down, like that was that NTFL, like the pretty good level of football. Yeah. So as you go down, I reckon there's a good argument that you just need to leave your good players on the ground a bit more, because as you go down a few levels, the speed and intensity isn't as much, and the fitness, standard is probably a little bit less. So sometimes you're better off just keeping your best players out there, even if they're at 70% and they're a little bit cooked. Sometimes they're more valuable than another player. So it's a hard one as you go down. But I reckon anything from that level and up, 100%, it should be like that. And interesting about the efforts, I've got a feeling some AFL clubs do that right now, because you see some midfielders, they don't last for 3 minutes at the moment. They just give effort, and they're off. Yeah.
For sure. So you mentioned communication. What sort of communication approaches do you find works effectively with the players you're working with?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit different maybe, and you could probably jump in on this one too, but it may be a little bit different, this one with males and females. I think, in the female space, they take everything quite literally. So you've got to be sort of careful about and really clear about what you say. It's got to be, I just think it's got to be clear, and you've got to explain it. And for me, it's explaining the why. If you don't explain the why, what's the purpose in it? And I think then they get value out of it, and then you might see growth. And then I think with the males, overcomplicating it and a long-winded message just doesn't work. Okay, I know myself when I was a player, I'd zone out after 1 or 2 minutes of the coach talking when I was just thinking about what I could do, which was quite selfish. But I've got a feeling many of the other players were like that as well. So keeping your message really succinct and clear and direct, I think that's really important. Maybe, I'd like to hear your thoughts, whether it is a bit different for the males and females. I'm not too sure.
Well, in terms of communication and speaking about innovative practices here, there's a coach who comes to mind immediately, and his name's Ricky Nolan. He's the son of Mick Nolan, who played for North Melbourne. So he coached.
I played with Ricky.
Oh, did you? Yeah. So him well.
We played at Maine together, and I played with Dale and a few of the boys there. Yeah, so he's a legend. Speak to him a bit. He's a good man.
Yeah. So he's been a guest on the podcast, and he's definitely coming back on because he's got a new job. So he was at Saints. Cool. He's then coached Pint women to the last 2 premierships, and now he's gone to Waratah Football Club as the men's head coach. Just only been announced this last week.
I didn't see that.
He has a coaching sort of analysis software called Sports Clip Maker. I don't know if he's really promoting it too much anymore, but one of the things that he was doing was cutting up clips and then showing it to his team. And so it was like a team-based thing. And he would do this before a game. And he was talking about how before a game, you see all the 1980s style coaches of the men's, writing all these words on the board, like do this, do that, like first and be first and front and
Yeah.
center, all these different things, all little catchphrases, whatever. And so
Yeah.
one of the things he said was get rid of all of the text on the whiteboard and get rid of all the words that you're going to say in the big 10-minute spiel you're going to give, where everyone's sitting there like looking away, yawning, trying really hard just to focus on the coach, bored out of their head.
Yeah.
And he would just show a video. So he'd go, this is one positive that we want to work on. And it would be no more, this whole video would be no more than a minute and a half. And inside it
Yeah.
would have what we want to work on, what we want to be known for, what we want to stand for.
Right,
Then
mate. Yeah.
something that the other team is sort of doing that we kind of want to nullify. And then something that we want to do well again. So
Beautiful.
two positives
Yeah.
essentially with something that they want to focus on, taking
Yeah.
away from the other team in the middle. So these
Yeah.
3 clips, all over and done in a minute and a half, and it was all visual. They could see exactly what he wanted. And I just
Yeah.
think that's perfect.
I agree. Yeah. And that, it's something that reflecting back, you asked me before, it's something that my dad first told me when I was coaching, and I was a player coach at about 27 years of age. So pretty scary. 27, walking into a senior club. And he said, don't overcomplicate it. Give them 3 messages max, no more than 3, and they'll be lucky to remember 3. So that was really my one philosophy for the year, because I was learning on the go. Was very similar to what Ricky's done there. Just 1, 2, 3, let's do that. And I think it's a good lesson for coaches, isn't it? Don't overcomplicate it. I also like I've been reading some books on brain science. If you write a lot of things on the board and you're talking, half your athletes are going to be reading the board, which means they're not listening to you. You can't do it. You can't read and listen to someone, and you can't. It's impossible. And the other half are listening to you, and they haven't read that, so the message is gone. So, and it's a funny one, isn't it? So yeah, it's Ricky is a very, very good coach, isn't he? Like, I'd love to. I had a phone chat with him not long ago. I'd love to catch up with him more, because he's a wealth of knowledge, isn't he?
Yeah, well, I ran into him a couple of weeks ago, and he said, "You know that I actually
Yeah.
got someone contact me from your podcast episode and asked to come and like shadow me and watch my coaching." I was like,
Awesome.
"Yes,
Yeah.
succeeded."
How good's that?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, no, he is a phenomenal coach, and he's been one who's been proven to be able to go across, male and female and be successful
Yeah.
across both genders. Like, um,
Yeah.
and I think because he strikes me as someone, from what I know about him, that he could be a pretty hard guy, coaching men.
Yeah.
And he can be very 1980s style, but he's also very, like 2024, like he's so up to date with everything,
Okay.
the video
Yeah.
is an example. And so I
Yeah.
think he can adapt quite well
Yeah.
to the male and the female space, and his communication, his ability to communicate with the girls that he coached at Pint. I think from speaking to Jasmine Hewitt, who was a former Adelaide Crow player, who's now won the best player for the competition the last 2
Yeah.
seasons, and won the last 2 premierships, and best on ground in both
Yeah.
grand finals. Like, she just
Yeah.
speaks so highly of him. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
First goal
Yeah.
in the grand final,
Yeah.
AFLW grand final. So definitely someone that you want to listen to when she's talking about football.
Yeah.
And she just rated Ricky as a coach and his ability to communicate.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what I've always thought too. He's never a finished product. He's always looking to grow. Like, even when I chat with him, he's asking what I'm doing, and he's picking my brains. I'm like, I want to pick your brains, mate, too. Like, he's always looking to get better. So yeah, guys like him, they could coach anywhere. He could get in any system, I reckon, and be successful. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what advice would you have for any football player who wants to further their career and play AFL or AFLW?
Yeah. It's a pretty cliche, but I think you've got to love it. It's a lifestyle that if you don't love it, geez, it wouldn't be great, because it's a grind. It's nutrition, strength and conditioning, getting the right sleep, training, repeat, sleep. It's just on repeat, and that's what the best players are doing. And yeah, so if you don't love it and you're not passionate about it, I think you're best to look somewhere else. So that would be my number one. And then obviously, if you love it, you've got to really want it. I look at these girls from the weekend that I was training, and girls like Ebony Marinoff, like, she's got nothing else to prove, really. She's won premierships, she's won best and fairest, she's a 6-time All-Australian. What else can you do? But she's still looking for that edge. She's still wanting to get better. and I posted a video of her kicking, and we just made some small improvements with her balance arm and the position she gets the ball at the top of her lift. How much better will that make her? Maybe 1%. But that's all these guys are looking for, right? So you got to really want it, and you'd be willing to work and grind through it, I reckon. So they're pretty cliche answers, but I think they're the main things I'm looking for in athletes that I think you might make it if you got that.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a mindset thing. I want to touch on that,
Yeah.
and I'm going to name drop here a little bit and tell a story.
Yeah.
And that's I was working with a local NTFL club again, Palmerston Magpies, and there was a player who had grown up playing for that club, went off to play AFL. His name was Aaron Davey, and
Yep.
he was known. His nickname was Flash, so he was known as being a fast player. He was the guy who pretty much brought into the game that defensive forward line pressure.
He did.
And
Yeah.
that tackling pressure, that relentless, chase people down like they didn't have a tenth of the time they thought they had. And he came back and he was playing in his first season back after being delisted at Melbourne. And I said to some of the young guys, I'm going to do a running mechanics session at the athletics track. Feel free to come down. And he said that he'd come down. I think it was more to kind of lead by example and go, well, if Aaron's going to go, then I should go as well. He went down, and one of the things he said to me really stuck with me. And it was, he goes, I wish I had have learned this stuff. And obviously they do a lot in the AFL system around strength and conditioning. And they do work on running technique a little bit, but they just don't get the time to be able to focus on that stuff because there's so many other competing demands. But he said, I wish I had been able to put some time and effort into improving my running mechanics. Imagine how fast I could have been. And it's a scary thought. And I just thought to myself, like, here's a guy whose post-career he'd been delisted by Melbourne. He'd gone, actually it was after a year later because he spent a year on Richmond's VFL list and was doing some assistant coaching at Richmond. Then he came back to Darwin. And I just thought, here's a guy whose, elite level career is over and he's just playing in the NTFL again. And he's just like enjoying playing with his family and friends and, bringing through these younger guys. And he's still trying to improve his performance, his ability.
That's the mindset of these guys, and they've all a lot. Like he was a very good player, but I find they've all got that in common. A lot of them, even when I was with Christian Petrarca as an example, like again, he's just looking for those small things, those small little things with his kicking. I want to be a better set shot. I want to be able to deliver the ball better inside 50. And if you watch his game on the weekend, he's delivering inside 50. It was absolutely beautiful. Okay. But he missed a set shot. So what did he do? Messages me, can you break down my set shot? He's relentless. And that's why he's one of the best, right? And it's the same as Aaron Davey. Like he's probably still looking for growth areas in his life or in whatever. So that's why they're so good. And that's why we can just learn off these guys.
Oh, yeah. And I think that goes across that's just a life lesson. I think that you need to develop as you're growing and maturing and take that into everything in life, not just sport, like every component of life.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. The growth mindset's the best one, isn't it? That's with, you hear it all the time, but if your athlete's got that, you're halfway there.
There was a clip, I think recently, wasn't there, with someone talking about Christian Petrarca delivering the ball into the forward line, and it was the best they'd ever seen. Was that?
Yeah.
Where did is that on your page?
I think I did. Yeah. Jake Lever after the game, he just said, they said, how, Christian Petrarca, what a game. He goes, yeah, I've never seen him kick like that. And I'm just like, yes, like that. He's been working at it, and you get results. And for a guy how old's Christian Petrarca? He must be 28. I'm not too sure. Might be a bit younger. To change your technique at that age with that many reps, it's pretty impressive, right? Like he's changed some significant things. So to have the faith in sort of me and then to deliver it is pretty good. And he's still got a way to go, and he knows that, but he's seeing benefit already, which is pretty cool.
And congratulations to you. What a leaf in your cap to have someone like that reach out to you and ask you, after getting such a rap about how great his kicking is, to then go, I need to contact this guy and ask about my set shot kicking.
Yeah. No, and I think, and it's no disrespect to any of his coaches. It's a time thing, like you said, with the running stuff. Like there's so many people on an AFL list, let's say 35 people, to have that one-on-one time and that constant thing just for one particular skill why wouldn't you use someone like me? And there's other people around as well. Like, why not? And that you might have someone helping him with his nutrition, with his strength and conditioning. It's a total package, isn't it?
It's a real US sport model. Do you think?
Yes.
I kind of think so, where they like, particularly in the US, they get paid such big money that in their off
Yeah.
seasons, particularly off seasons, they go away and they go, I need to work on my first 5 steps, and they go and get
Yeah.
like an acceleration coach, or I need to
Yeah.
work on my like step between 20 meters and 30 meters when I'm sprinting. Like it's
Yeah.
real specific in the US. And of
Yeah.
course, with like it might be a skill like handballing under pressure, or forward handball,
Hmm.
or something like real, like
Yeah.
in this case, goal set shots, not just
Yeah.
random kicking in general, but specifically shooting for goal. Do you
Yeah.
think I think we're going to see more of it. Do you agree?
I agree, yeah, and there's a real niche for it. There is, and we just happen to stumble on it, which is awesome. But there is a niche for it. And yeah, like plays like LeBron James. I don't know the exact figures, but what he spends on his body, and everything from recovery to strength and conditioning to nutrition to mindset, it's millions and millions of dollars, and it makes it easy when you earn 50 million a year or whatever. Just from it'd be more, but AFL players are the same. They're on million dollars a year. Why can't they invest as well?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I'm going to ask this as a two-part question here. So I want to
Yep.
the last question, or sorry, not there's another one after this that I want to ask about you personally. But so where do you see football going in the men's game? And then I want to ask, what do you see for the future of the women's game? So first of all, the men's, where do you see the sport evolving to in terms of probably more game style?
Yeah, it's a good question. I personally see something happening, and it could be an AFL rule change or something, but something's going to happen with the amount of congestion in the game, because at the moment, wherever the ball is, everyone else is within 70 meters of it. No matter what game you go to, if there's a stoppage, they're all within 50 to 70 meters of it. So I think coaches, AFL, there's going to be something happen to try and stretch that out. Now, you can do it easily with a rule change, but that changes the whole sort of gist of our game. Like whether we want to limit players to where they run, I don't really like that. But yeah, there's got to be something that evolves from that, I think. You can already see at the moment, teams have worked out what Collingwood's doing, and they've worked it out pretty easily. And
Very
I
quickly.
very quickly. I'll put it on tomorrow, actually. I did a breakdown of what St Kilda did. And basically, every time there was like a kick come in or a ground ball, they didn't want to go chaos style handball through Collingwood, because that's what Collingwood likes, don't they? They love the game in motion, chaos. McQuarrie, Bobby Hill, they're going to tackle and cause a turnover. What they did, they might do one handball, then they just hit a lateral kick anywhere, backwards, whatever, control the game, slow the tempo, make the ground big, make them defend. And I had about 20 examples of that. Whereas most teams would attack them with hands, but they've worked it out. And geez, it looks good. But Collingwood's got to try something different, don't they? So, yeah, the women's game, I think it's already evolved heaps. And I think the biggest area that if I was coaching a team, I would focus on getting the ball out of congestion with hands so we can get time and space to kick. I think that, a lot of short handballing and rushed handballing, if they can just sort out maybe one and then a wider one, or a handball forward of the stoppage, like the men do really well, then their kicking will look better. Because at the moment, they're kicking under severe pressure for 95% of the game. So that's the area I see evolving, is that clean exit from congestion, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Really detailed response. I would have
Yeah,
expected
sorry.
nothing less. I love it. I'm really interested to see what happens,
Yeah.
especially with that what you said about the men's. That I'm really interested to see what happens there, and if that comes to
Yeah.
fruition.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, I do think a rule change will come somewhere, but I'm just not sure. Yeah. Like the stand rule hasn't really made a difference.
I hate the stand rule. Yeah,
They said it would open up kicks, but again, coaches now, they just don't stand the mark. They back off and block him. So
yeah.
the coaches are very smart, aren't
Oh, they are. They're very like they're going to find a way around everything, and they
they?
are.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're employed to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, they're
Last
very.
one. Last
Yeah.
one is you personally. What's next?
Um, Good question. I think I like the app that I've got. I really want that to grow, and I want that people and coaches to embrace it and use it, because I think video feedback in our game is used really well at the top level. You know, from AFL, VFL, and TFL. There's lots of reviews happening, isn't there? There's lots of feedback. I don't think it's happening that well once we go down, and there's some serious footballers and football happening down at those lower levels in junior level. So the whole aim of it is to create something that's easy to use for coaches to give quick feedback, whether it be at halftime or after the game. So that's where I see it going, because I want people to give feedback like we're giving, and make that spread throughout the nation for our game, because I reckon we're a little bit behind in it, particularly in the skill analysis part of it. Kicking's the most important skill, yet it's the most poorly taught skill, in my opinion. Don't
Yeah.
know what you think about that, but
Oh, yeah, I'm really interested with kicking because I got dropped from an A grade game in the
yeah,
NTFL because my kicks were too loopy, and like that was
yeah,
probably over 20 years ago now. I'm 41 now,
yeah,
and
yeah,
that would have been, I don't know when that was, maybe mid 20s, and
yeah.
even like to this day, I'm still like, what could I do? How can I do it?
Yeah.
And I
And
reckon
that's the
I've learned
thing.
more watching your videos in the last couple of
Yeah,
weeks.
I did a coaching course the other day, and I'm like, a lot of coaches say that, yeah, you're kicking too loopy or you're leaning back too far. That's sort of, you're not even halfway there with the feedback. That's great, but what's the solution to it? So if you can't kick it a low punchy kick, fix your body position, get it upright and slightly forwards. Make sure when you're dropping the ball, make sure you bring it in a little bit better so your shin angle is, straight as you're contacting the ball, and that'll should punch it in. Or land on your kick foot after you kick. There's three things that'll help you kick low.
Well, there's
That would have
three
been
things
good.
I didn't even know.
But that's it's simple information. But and again, I'd show the video, and then you have it. You've got it there, and then you're like, "There's your solution. Now it's up to you, isn't it? Go practice it. I'll help you." I
Yeah.
just don't think we're giving them the right feedback or enough. We're sort of just telling them the problem without a solution.
Mm. Well,
Mm.
I did know that up only a couple of weeks ago when I watched your video. So
Yeah,
honestly, if anyone wants to improve their game for football, they absolutely have to head on over to your Instagram page and check it out. Enhanced Football, it is on Instagram. And like I said, I've learned more watching a couple of your videos than I have in 20 plus years. So
I think. Yeah,
it's seriously so valuable just to even to watch the content. And then I can't imagine how much someone's going to improve if they actually work with you one-on-one. And we'll link
yeah.
all that up in the show notes.
Yeah, no, thanks so, mate. And it is, yeah, it's a privilege to make a difference to, so many players around Australia and sometimes the world. But it's yeah, we never lose sight of that it's a real privilege, and to work with professionals all the way down to 8-year-olds. So we love it, and it's good to meet you too. And it's good that I've watched some of your stuff as well. So if I've ever got some running problems, I might even I've got a shocking running technique myself, so I might send through some footage, get some help.
Please do feel free anytime. Um, it's funny, we were talking before we started recording. I'll give some background to what you're talking about. And so I'm a PE teacher, you're a PE teacher, and some of my year 12 said, you've got to check out this guy, Enhanced Football, on Instagram. And so I reached out, and they were super excited to hear that I had reached out to you, had a reply, and
Yeah.
had got you onto the show.
If you got if you have a good student that plays footy, reward them, tell them they can message me and I'll do a kicking analysis for them. There's
Uh,
a little reward for being good in class for you.
All right, I'll let them know tomorrow. I have the double with them tomorrow, so I'll let them know. And actually, so there's two year 12 classes. There's integrated learning PE, and then there's like PE studies. And
Yeah,
the PE studies class are about to start doing biomechanics, and
yeah,
it's all
awesome.
about sort of max power, max effort type stuff. So they're generally
Yep.
choosing golf swing to do that. But there's a guy that's doing a rugby union kick off the tee. There's a
Beautiful.
couple of hockey
Yep.
players that are doing like a tomahawk hit.
Yep.
Yeah, so
We've done a
uh,
couple of rugby union analysis as well, but tell him to look up Rugby Bricks. He's the man for kicking technique with rugby union.
yeah,
And
okay.
he's a guy that I speak to and ask for advice early on in the journey. He's a great man. Best bit of advice he gave me when I first started this, he said, don't hold anything back, just let it all out. Because I reckon there's so many better coaches than me, but they just don't share what they do.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid. I just share everything. And that's sort of been my secret, I suppose. So really good advice from him early is just to share everything and try to make a difference. And that's what he does. So it's good.
Is he on Instagram? How would someone find him?
Yeah. Rugby bricks.
Yeah.
He is huge. Yeah. He's
Yeah.
5 times, yeah, lots. But if you watch his breakdown of skill analysis, you'll get the sense of who I've sort of learnt off and base stuff off as well. Like we're very similar in what we do. Yeah, he's the man. Good.
It's good advice that, because like I think if you give away all of your stuff, then that's how people know they want to work with you, and then people actually pay to work with you. So
Yeah.
give it all away. And at the end of the day, the thing I've learned in the high performance space is that every high performance coach I've ever communicated with, it's mainly strength and conditioning coaches, but it's not just skills coaches like yourself, and it's head coaches. They give everything. They give every bit of information because they know that it's all out there, and it's all about, the nuances of how you coach it. So
it is.
no one can go and copy, and you can take a piece of this there and piece of that there, but really you have to go and work with someone to really get like real improvement. But like it's all out there. There's nothing to keep to yourself. It's not worth having that mentality. Because if you, and at the end of the day, why not help people? Why not help as many people as you can? You mentioned it, like how that feeling, it's worth more than any dollar, to know that you've helped people.
Yeah. And that's why me and you got into teaching, right? Because I thought I like developing relationships. I like working with kids, and it was pretty cool to make a difference. And that's coaching. Once you develop a relationship and once you got their trust, you can do anything, can't you? So yeah, no, it's good. Has anyone told you look like what's his name? Braithen Astor from Rugby League?
No, I haven't had Braithen Astor. Geez, that's a real
You're probably a bit better looking. I'll give you a bit better looking than that, but his nose is a bit like mine.
I actually split my nose open. I've broken it, and I've split it open. I quickly tell you the story about it. So I was playing baseball, and one of my best mates was my throwing partner and warming up for training one day. Like, talk about good coaching here. So the coaches had us lined up, just throwing the ball 20 meters apart. And I was facing directly into the sun, which was setting behind my partner's head. And he was like pegging it. This guy had an arm on him, and he was throwing it really hard. And I just said, slow it down. I can't really see properly. And he faked to throw it. And I put my glove up to catch it, expecting it to hit my mitt, and it didn't come. I pulled my mitt down for a split second, bang, baseball straight in the middle of the face, 2 black eyes, broke the cartilage, which is in the nose, in 2 spots. And then the other story, I split it completely open. So my nose used to actually look good. Now it looks terrible. But I was at Scarborough Surf Club in Perth, and I was on a surf lifesaving trip. That was my sport, was beach sprints and beach flags. And so I was down at Scarborough, and I'd stolen this girl's journal, and I was running into the toilet with it, being this stupid like teenage boy, and went straight into these saloon doors, bang, split it open, like fully flapped open, like 4 stitches. And
modeling career done.
Yeah, done. What was your story with your nose?
Mine's just footy, just constant. It's a big nose, and it just constantly got hit. I was always coming off with blood noses and stuff. So it's very crooked. Not getting it fixed, so it's part of the story, right?
Yeah, exactly. It makes a good story. Ben, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much. We might actually get you back on and talk a bit more at some point in the future, I reckon, because there's probably plenty more to talk about. But yeah, thank you for your time today on the Women's Footy Podcast.
No, awesome. And excited to hopefully connect with a few more women and footballers from the NT, because it's a thriving place for footy. So I would love to.
Good on you, mate. Your way. Are you a footballer who wants to maximize your performance to succeed at the top level? My new ebook, Strength and Conditioning 101 for Female Footballers, is now available. For free and instant access, simply head on over to jacobandre.com. Link is in the show notes.